We were visiting Indonesia and some of the multitude of islands that make up the huge archipelago. We begin on the island of Bali, on its northern coast. We're just departing the resort area of Lovina, where we'd been staying during our tour. Our wonderful leader was Jumana, a native of Bali. Bali is renowned for its UNESCO World Heritage rice terraces called subak, an artificial ecosystem begun in the 9th century. We pulled over to the side of the road so we could get a closer look. These ancient subak contain rice paddies that are connected by a system of lakes, streams, canals, tunnels, and forests. All are carefully maintained to supply the precious rice terraces and water system of Bali. There are currently about 12,000 subak. From 50 to 400 farmers manage each group of terraces and its water supply. One terrace drains down to the next, providing a consistent flow for the terrace below. Imagine, these beautiful subak terraces have been maintained for over 1,200 years.
It was drizzling as we stopped on our way going south at a tropical resort. We walked through a vine-covered gate into a lush garden with lanterns and moss-covered statues. Down a hill we found an open, roof-covered terrace filled with diners. The terrace overlooked a large swimming pool, veranda, and subak rice terraces. A tropical rain began just as we were served our Indonesian sampler with a rice pyramid and various sauces. After our lunch, the rain had stopped, and we saw pet fruit bats hanging in a bush.
Do yours come out at night?
Where they grow wild, when they live wild, yes, they come out at night.
That's what ours do.
Also known as megabats, fruit bats are very large herbivores that have very sharp teeth. Unlike other bats, they don't navigate by echolocation, also known as biosonar. They rely on their keen senses of sight and smell to locate their food. We left the resort, passing back through the drenched and humid garden to the gate. There we found our faithful Balinese driver, Wayan.
Okay, and you can see part of the terraces with new mud. That's how they maintain the terraces. Yeah, they have to maintain the terraces because otherwise, when it's very heavy rain, the water will wash it away.
At the end of our long drive across Bali, we came to a very wide avenue with a huge statue.
So this is the story of Ramayana epic. So the statue tells us the story of Rama with the monkeys building bridge from India to Sri Lanka.
On the southeastern coast of Bali is the city of Sanur. That night we had dinner at a seafood restaurant in Sanur. We were served a big slab of fish with various sauces. Once again, out on a covered terrace. This time, right on the street. A Balinese dancer performed for our entertainment.
Thank you.
Down the cafe-lined street, busy with locals and tourists, we walked to our hotel, the Taksu Sanur. Our room contained a giant bed and a balcony that overlooked a long, narrow lap pool. In the morning, we went down through the hotel lobby, sitting next to the pool. There, we came to the hotel's cafe for a yummy buffet breakfast before going out on tour.
Last point of the southern part of Bali, the last end, there is a place and temple named Ulu Watu Temple. Ulu Watu Temple, and it is a public temple as well. So we are going to see the temple. It is located on the top of the hill, so face to Indian Ocean.
Across the southern tip of Bali to the west coast, we came to a large parking lot filled with cars and tour buses. We had arrived at Ulu Watu Pura, or temple. Our group was given bright sashes, and those wearing shorts got sarongs. We watched as very large groups crossed the parking lot, carrying bags and colorful baskets on their heads. We had come on the birthday of Ulu Watu Temple. It was begun in the 1300s when Hindus left Java and came to Bali. We walked past the main gate to take a side path as the others poured in through the main gates of the temple grounds. There's a coastal path flanked by a stone balustrade, offering a magnificent view. Without a doubt, what makes Ulu Watu Temple spectacular is its cliff-top setting. Ulu means edge or tip, and Watu means a stone or a rock in Balinese. At this edge of the plateau sits the temple complex, 250 feet above the waves of the Indian Ocean. The cliff looms while below the ocean pounds the shore. A magnificent sight. The fiber roof tower and smaller pavilions make this iconic scene unforgettable. A great place for a souvenir photo that gives perspective of the cliffside. Back along the path, we walked to join the worshippers, passing bougainvillea and other flowering plants, looking back for a glimpse of the cliff.
At a side gate, we were given free time. We watched as trays of food were brought into the temple for the birthday celebration. Worshippers were sitting in the shade on the stairs leading to the pavilion. All had on traditional Balinese clothing, men with sarongs, shirts, and head wraps. The women, usually in lace shirts, sashes, and sarongs. The pavilion was busy. People dropped off platters of food to be blessed. Helpers carried the food to the priests for the blessings, while the families moved toward the sanctuary of Ulu Watu. As we were not worshippers, we weren't allowed in the inner area of the complex. We tried to see where the food and the offerings were being taken. We could only see small wooden safes and the fiber-roofed platforms and shrines through lavish silk altars. Next, we went to the entrance gate of the sanctuary, flanked by silk-covered statues and tall bamboo pinjor. We got a glimpse of the sanctuary arch at the end of a long aisle. People were sitting on either side in the shade. Fans made bird-like sounds as they whirled above the seated worshippers. People proceeded up the aisle to the sanctuary arch. We craned our necks to see what was happening. Then we walked up a path where we could see the top of the sanctuary arch. There, a huge bamboo and palm leaf pinjor swung lazily above the arch. We gave up trying to see anything more in the sanctuary and crossed to the other side of the temple complex. There the balustrade continued, hugging the cliffside above the beautiful blue Indian Ocean. Our free time was over and we descended to meet our tour. We hurried down to find Jumana and our group sitting in the shade. We proceeded to the opposite end of the balustrade for another view. Along the way, Jumana stopped next to a Balinese family.
Yes, from North Bali, farther than Lovina. So they came here with the offering like this. This is what generally you see in the basket inside. So the fried chicken, but not from Kentucky, from North Bali. KFC. He said Hari Kampung, it's more from my village. So he traveled probably about 95 miles. And fruits. And you see here, and all the way, the woven of rice from the young coconut leaf. And cake. This is the rice. This is what they are going to eat. Inside this rice. This is the woven of young coconut leaf. So this is what my favorite with my family. After praying, having this one and chicken. And of course fruits. Fruits, banana, orange, and this is my favorite. I like this cake. I asked for having this cake.
What is it?
Very nice.
Something like a snack, right?
Like snack.
We enjoyed seeing the recently blessed lunch in its distinctive Balinese basket and met the lovely family. Then we carried on with our cliffside walk. We passed through another wooded area where we came upon an iguana.
This is our iguana in Bali, Balinese iguana. One is a small iguana. The bigger one up to 5 feet.
Do they eat them here?
Yeah, we eat it. But the tongue exactly, the shape of the tongue exactly the same as Komodo tongue.
In a few days, we would be going to Komodo Island, where we hope to see the Komodo Dragon, enormous cousin of this iguana. We got our pictures of the temple and the long cliffside walkway from this other side, and because of the temple's birthday celebration, we shared the experience with many other visitors. We were on our way back to the bus and came upon a giant Hindu statue of a deity covered in monkeys. Ulu Watu is a temple known to be inhabited by aggressive monkeys. They're notorious for snatching visitors' belongings. There were a few on the main path leading back to the parking lot.
Got offering so we can go out. Oh, somebody's glasses.
Glasses. Huh? You need the glasses.
Oh, that guy's got sunglasses. Look at the sunglasses.
I told them.
We left the sneaky monkeys who had stolen someone's sunglasses as worshippers continued to pour through the main gate of Ulu Watu Temple.
Back at our hotel, we now had free time to explore the city of Sanur on our own. We could have eaten lunch and passed several restaurants, but we decided to visit a large, famous local shopping center, Hardee's. The second floor was reached by an escalator and led to the enormous section of Indonesian-made clothing. perused the racks looking for a gift for our son Jay. We thought a t-shirt might be appropriate. Whoa! That sundress is pretty cute. Van tried on and then modeled the men's Balinese head wrap, the udang. Maybe our son would rather have a cap instead. This batik hat is really nice. Of course, Indonesia is famous for its rattan woven products. A tissue holder for our bathroom is just perfect. The selection was enormous. How about a Buddha head? Or maybe a handmade mask? Perhaps these hand-painted ones. That hand-carved one is great. Wrap it up. It was time to leave Hardee's and return to our hotel and rejoin the tour.
Jumana led us on a walk through the neighborhood. We began to see Kanigsari, the beautiful offerings the Balinese leave everywhere. They're found on the ground, inside small shrines, near statues, and scattered around temples. We walked past homes, many covered in vining flowers, often with statues and hidden behind gates. There was a wonderful Buddha head fountain at one entry, and Balinese men sitting on covered, raised platforms. Finally, we came to a beach on the Indian Ocean. Beach is Pantai in Balinese. Today, this is a popular destination, but during World War II, this beach was an entry point where the Japanese forces landed to occupy Bali. Jumana explained about the Balinese sport of kite flying. It's a very popular sport, as kites are viewed as having a spiritual as well as an entertaining purpose. An assortment of surfing kites lay at the ready. We passed a group of boys with their gamelan band instruments. Two were inside the body of a hairy creature, their legs showing beneath this mythical beast. The creature uses its magic to help people become rich instantly. But in exchange, people must sacrifice something, in this case, money. The boys had been parading on the beach, using the creature to collect money for their community. Nearby, a woman sat on the sand and performed the ritual of lighting incense and saying prayers. Beachcombing is popular with people digging for clams and crabs when the tide is out. Families played on the beach as we watched, and we too enjoyed this marvelous day in Bali. As we were walking back to our hotel, we passed a large group surrounding a fenced area. There were some men taking bets and two others holding fighting cocks. In Balinese Hinduism, the blood spilled in a cockfight is believed to drive out evil spirits. Even though it's illegal, cockfighting takes place all over Bali. Men spend anywhere from 6 months to 2 years preparing roosters for a cockfight. Here two were set against each other while bets were taken. We decided not to watch.
gathered by the pool that evening for a farewell dinner. Part of our group was departing while the rest of us were going on the post tour, taking us forward to more Indonesian islands.
We are heading to the restaurant, Coco Bistro restaurant. So maybe you went to the beach just now, right? Some of you. Yeah. So we are going to the same beach.
The following morning, we headed out to the airport. We passed by the national symbol of Indonesia, the bird god Garuda, and some of those mythical beasts we'd seen the boys carrying the day before. We also passed prayer rooms set up for Muslim travelers. We were going on a domestic flight, leaving Bali and going to the city of Labuan Bajo on the nearby Indonesian island of Flores. Below us were tiny atoll and coral reef encircled islands among the 18,000 islands that make up the archipelago of Indonesia. After an hour and a half, we came to Flores. We noticed how very different this island looked compared to Bali. The Flores coastline did have a green collar of vegetation, but the rest was brown barren hills with sparse trees and shrubs, not at all like the lush green Balinese landscape.
The city of Labuan Bajo is on the western end of a very long and narrow island of Flores. The modern airport was opened in 2015. It was built to accommodate the many travelers like us coming to see the famous Komodo Dragons found nearby. Our local guide, Dodi, greeted us.
Labuan Bajo. So Labuan means harbor, and Bajo is a name of tribe. Yeah, it's a name of tribe that came from Celebes long time ago. So on the left hand side is the local market, and then we will spend for 45 minutes here.
We stopped at the local market, filled with an abundance of color. Apparent right away was the large assortment of rice for sale. Bags showed red rice and various long and short grain white varieties. Vendors, often carrying their young children, winnowed the rice to separate stones and other impurities from the grains. This ancient practice used flat baskets to reveal the unwanted fragments. Rice is the most important ingredient in food all over Indonesia, and a huge stockpile was stored under an open covered platform. Dried beans are also an important ingredient available. Fresh vegetables and fruit were also displayed in bright plastic boxes or on tarps. These vendors, mostly women, were waiting for the sale. A bearded man in an Indonesian cap and shoppers in bright Muslim headwear, or hijab, greeted us as we walked through the marketplace with our local guide, Dodi. Those not in the shade of the trees often used colorful umbrellas to protect themselves from the sun. We were curious about each other as we examined their ginger, chilies, cucumbers, and some already peeled nutmeg packaged in plastic bags.
Ini Mama ya. Terima kasih. Okay.
Yeah, I've been looking for nutmeg. And the nutmeg.
Lucky vendors were in the shade of a covered arcade. Wonderful, giggly kids preferred this area. They followed us around the market, hamming for pictures with their inevitable victory signs. Their bright, shining, and healthy faces lighted up for us. Across the way, there were other vendors with beautiful, fragrant, sugar-sprinkled baked goods. Nearby was the fish market. Small scales waited at the ready with piles of dried fish waiting to be weighed. Women in the stalls were really beautiful with their colorful outfits, many minding their kids. One was taking a nap, no doubt knowing her customer would wake her for the sale. Next to the dried fish, there was also fresh fish, some staying cool in water-filled pots. Some vendors made their offering more desirable by scraping the scales from the raw fish, while others chopped large fish into smaller pieces. Finally, we came to a stall selling the infamous betel nut that's chewed all over Asia.
So look at the beetle, and then limestone.
Limestone.
Yeah. And then the nut. So just pour little bit take little bit the beetle or the leaves. It's the same. Yeah, this is the same because this is the fruits and this is the leaves. So take little bit and then with the limestone and then with a little bit of the nut and mix it together. Yeah. So after that they just like how do you call it? Chewing that, and then after a few minutes, then your teeth will be red. Yeah. So just like touch like this and then chew it. And also the nuts here, yeah, this only like half of the nut. And then he took only, like 1/4 from the old size of the nut. Yeah.
And he's going to show us his teeth.
Bisa tunjukkan giginya?
The man showed us his stained teeth and red saliva. Betelgeuse discolors the teeth. Much used like chewing tobacco, betel nut is a stimulant and gives a slightly heightened alertness, and it's very addictive. There's evidence of its being used going back at least 4,000 years. The wonderful kids followed us out as we left the colorful and fascinating market.
Our group boarded our tour bus and then drove past the Labuan Bajo Harbor, busy with all kinds of private and commercial sail and motorboats. Our destination was Batu Cermin, the Mirror Stone Cave. It was discovered in 1951 by some archaeologists and a local man, Theo Verhoeven. Once under the sea, the cave was lifted to the surface because of tectonic action. We walked a paved path and up some steps to arrive at the mouth of the cave. A young man training as a tour guide joined us. The white walls outside the cave were high and showed the remnants of fossils, with salt crystals that gleam, giving the cave its name, Mirror Stone Cave. We climbed over some rocks and went further into the interior. There we paused to get a better look at the fossils that formed the cave. This was a great place to learn more about the volcanic and tectonic activity that formed the long archipelago of Indonesia.
That this cave was underwater. You can see like some of the dead coral on the wall of the cave here. Yeah. And later on, for those of you who would like to get into the tunnel part, then you will see the fossil of turtle. Yeah, turtle fossil.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That is why Theodor Farhoeven said that this cave was underwater for million years ago. Yeah. And he said in his research that because of tectonic plate move and crush each other and then create like earthquake, some of the islands disappear and some of the island appear.
We continued on further into the Mirror Stone Cave, where we stopped outside a long dark opening. There was a pile of hard hats just outside a tunnel. Theodore, the young man training to be a tour guide, and Dodie went along with part of our group that wanted to explore further into the tunnel. We needed to crouch low and practically crawl for about 20 minutes to get to the area of a turtle fossil and other interesting formations.
Yeah, I have to hold it with my hand. The helmet's too big.
Put it down, please.
This is good through here. Well, I think okay, wow, this is really low here.
Okay.
Bang your head here.
Right.
Here, to the left. Oh, yeah. All right, here we are in the hole part. Yeah, you can see on the ceiling part here. Yeah, some of the holes. Yeah, like here, here, and there. And then those of the holes here, Theodor Farhoeven said it's because of the current, like the current of the water, because this was underwater. So because of the current, and then created the what's that?
Waves.
Yeah, the holes here. Yeah, because this calcium. I mean, the stone is calcium. So it's easier for the water to create a hole like this. Yeah. And then it's in there. As a turtle, yeah, turtle fossil is here. And you can see. This is the head.
Oh, cool.
And this is the body part. And this is the tail. So back leg, and the front leg here.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Okay?
wicked.
It took a couple of tries to get the camera to focus with the low light inside the tunnel, but I finally got a good shot of the fossilized turtle on the ceiling above us.
So here is the dead coral. Yeah. All the part here. You can see this one just like a head of monkey. This one.
Oh.
Imagination, huh?
Imagination, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that coral here as well. And you can see like jellyfish. And then just like a leg of lion or tiger here
Where?
on my lunch. Yeah. And then up here, yeah, just like a lady here on my line,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
on the wall. Can you see?
Oh, yeah.
Up and down of my line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And for us here, we believe that this is like Virgin Mary.
Okay.
Are you a Christian?
Spiritual.
Yes, I am.
You're a Christian.
Yes, I am.
But when Terror Verhoeven came to this cave at a time, he came in the rainy season, and the rain came into the hole up there to here, and then much water at a time here, and then when the sun around like 11 to 12 coming through the hole up there, and the sun reflect from the water here to the whole part of the cave. So by that time, Terror Verhoeven called that this is mirror stone cave or mirror rock cave. But actually there is no mirror inside because of the reflection of the sun from the water on the ground goes everywhere to the corner of the cave. And then he called this cave as mirror stone cave or mirror rock cave. Yeah. Okay?
Yes.
So there is no mirror here. Alright?
Okay.
Thank you. All right. We passed our wilderness test.
No problem.
There's a fruit bed here.
This is interesting. Oh, want me to keep my light off it?
You have to keep the flashlight off.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll put mine.
Yeah. Yes. You can see it's very dark. Yeah. Oh, but there's some.
Yeah. Any friends?
No problem. Jangan terpaskan. Bend down little bit down. Yes. Down again. Go to the left.
Here, let me get him against the wall.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, it's gonna be
So what's your head here?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
Always find
remember that
something
one.
else to see.
We stooped and crawled our way back out of the tunnel and finally got to the opening where we'd entered. The others were there waiting for us.
You don't have landlines anymore.
Okay, done. Very good, very good.
Okay.
All troops come.
Anybody bleeding? No. Hey!
Back through the gleaming fossil formations to the entrance, we stopped to pose for a picture in Mirror Stone Cave on the island of Flores. We checked into our hotel, Bintag Flores, and were given a cool drink. We noticed the carved Komodo Dragon in the lobby, causing us to hope to see some dragons very soon. Then we went up to our spacious and well-appointed room that overlooked the back garden. Right away, we went down to see the garden at the back of the hotel and to check out the pool and its location right on the beach, overlooking the harbor. We took a long stroll on the beach and then returned to our hotel, walking under vine-covered arbors to reach our room on the very top floor. Our final activity on this very full day took us once again past the harbor and out to the edge of town to climb Bukit Sinta, or Love Hill. We had come for the panoramic view and to watch the sun set over Labuan Bajo. We'd seen the coastline from our plane ride to this island. Now we got a similar view from a hilltop. Palm trees and mangrove hugged the coastline at the bottom of the brown hills. It was an exquisite evening in the fading sunlight. A camera crew from the local television station had also climbed the hill to capture the sunset. They took pictures of the area and also some of us tourists from the faraway United States. They told us they would include us in their televised story. Dodie pointed out some small buildings located out in the water. There are various reasons for these structures. One is to serve as a pearl shack, where workers gather to prepare oysters in their creation of cultured South Sea Island pearls by implanting a small bead along with a tiny piece of mantle tissue. The oysters are then suspended from buoys in metal baskets down into the seawater. In the water, the oysters form their layers of nacre around the bead, the nucleus on which the oyster secretes layer after layer of this nacre or mother of pearl. The practice was begun in Australia in the 1950s. Today, Indonesia focuses on the gold-tipped oyster and produces mostly exquisitely perfect cream pearls, although other iridescent colors are also created. Irregularly shaped pearls are called baroque.
We rode the hotel's glass elevator down to breakfast the next morning. A staff member was feeding the koi in a pond next to the open-air dining room, where some of our tour group was already eating. There was a wonderful coffee bar with fresh fruit, and a buffet with hot dishes, cereal, and yogurt. After eating, we went up to the lobby, and I could not resist posing next to the wooden Komodo Dragon.
Our boat will be waiting us and take us to Komodo Island for takes us about 1 hour 45 minutes, and we will anchor at the small piers.
This was a day we had been anxiously anticipating as we drove to the harbor to take a boat out to Komodo National Park. It was a perfect morning as we climbed into the bench seats of a waterbus. We greeted our Indonesian captain and then motored out into the harbor to get a closer look at the fascinating private and commercial vessels we had seen from the shore.
Passed by some of the islands, and some will inhabited, and some will be empty. So for those of the island inhabited by people, and mostly that village or that islands as a fisherman island, yeah, and some of them has also the school, but some not. Okay, so enjoy our time to get to Komodo about 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Dodi told us about the islands we were passing and showed us on the map the route to Komodo Island just off the western coast of Flores. Then we took a short tour of the boat, going up to the bow and then back to the stern to see the twin 85 horsepower motors that were powering us across the Indian Ocean. An hour and 45 minutes later, we came to Komodo Island and the entrance to Komodo National Park. The park includes the large islands of Komodo and Rinca and 27 smaller ones. It was founded in 1980 to protect the Komodo Dragon, the world's largest lizard. We stepped off the waterbus and climbed some stairs capable of moving with the tide. Then we paused for a souvenir picture. We had made it to the Komodo National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Then on to the covered visitor center for a briefing.
And we are here right now, yeah. And then we will do trekking around here. Then we will be finished here. And we will have 2 rangers to accompany us to go to see the Komodo, yeah.
We have here
Daddy, nice to meet you.
Daddy.
Daddy and another one,
And then Madam Abdullah.
Hi,
Abdullah. Yeah, Abdullah and Daddy. So before going to the park or start the trekking, then they will explain us about the rule and everything related to the national park, related to the Komodo.
Off we went across Komodo Island, where our first encounter was with a doe and a fawn of Timor deer.
This deer, was introduced by man long time ago from east part to this island, into game hunting, and now time become as a main prey of Komodo. So mostly Komodo, they feed on this kind of deer. I mean, for this size of deer, mostly Komodo Dragon just bite. For instance, when Komodo Dragon just lay down here, camouflage, and they pass by, and they just bite. The teeth of Komodo Dragon just like a snake teeth.
The introduction of the Timor deer for hunting by humans meant the Komodo dragons could also hunt and eat the deer. This inadvertently helped preserve the Komodo from extinction. We walked on and then had to hold down our excitement as we saw our first Komodo dragon lumbering down the path ahead of us.
Stay far away from the adult and from the human like us. Yeah,
And how old did you say it was?
2 to 3 years old.
Our first dragon disappeared into the bush, and Dodie explained how important it was to stay far away from these endangered lizards. Then we noticed a male Timor deer at the edge of the forest.
This one is about 5 to 6 years old. Yeah, of the deer. You can see from the horn. And this one is male.
With its small rack, it was apparent this was a male. We wish he would stand so we could see him better, but he didn't, so we moved on. Then there, under some bushes, was another Komodo, lazy in the late morning heat. We kept our distance and used our zoom lens to get a closer look. There are only about 3,000 of these large and fearsome Komodo dragons left in the world. They are descendants of lizards that once lived across Indonesia and Australia, most of which died out during the Pleistocene. Luckily, they survived here and now are protected. Though seemingly docile, they are unpredictable and aggressive, especially when the animal's territory is invaded by something unfamiliar. The huge claws were a real deterrent to us. Some of us put up our umbrellas for a bit of shade. Indonesia is just 8 degrees south of the equator, and it was hot. As we went along, we saw another dragon walking through the bush. Once again, the zoom lens provided us with a better look at this dragon, this time more active. We kept walking along, hoping to see more and even bigger specimens. We climbed to get a panoramic view of the island and out to the harbor where our waterbus was moored. It was very hot and dry, a challenge as we reached the top of the hill overlooking the dock and the boats there. One of the guides told us to look over at a green bush on the edge of the clearing. Well blended in the shade sat a very large Komodo.
Under the tree.
Kind of camouflage. Police looking at it this way.
That one about 20 years old.
20 years old.
20 years old. And this one is female one. Female. Pregnant maybe?
How can you tell?
We can tell male and female. First one from the head. Small head is a female one. Big head is a male one. And then from the tail. Yeah, and also from the tail. When it's like a short tail, yeah, it's a female one. And long tail is the male one. And then also from the body size. Yeah, that's the easier way to distinguish.
This was the largest dragon we had come across so far. She was alert and seemed curious. The Komodo Dragon can see as far as 1,000 feet. It can see in color, but has poor visual discrimination at stationary objects, so we tried to be very still. We watched this female dragon for a bit, and then, as leaving time was approaching, our group headed back down the hill to catch our water bus. We then approached the visitor center, and underneath a raised building was another Komodo dragon lying on some leaves in the shade. A really wonderful specimen. We turned around and saw another Komodo sleeping under some steps nearby. It looked like an old one. Komodos can live up to 30 years. We got a few more pictures, but it was time to leave the park, so we headed over to the dock. Just by the sign for the national park stood a group of men. They were holding long strands of South Sea Island pearls. Share with each other, do they? They do? Oh, they do not.
Doing video?
Yes, I am.
It was really fun to bargain with these men over these wonderful iridescent pearls.
Of course, I mean, for the term of prices, we don't have this kind of thing in Bali.
Right.
Marlon, one of the sellers, and I went back and forth on prices for the various pearls. Then I chose several green and silver strands. Marlon didn't seem as happy as I was. Our group paused for a picture at the National Park sign, and then we left to motor away from Komodo Island, followed by sellers who were hoping for just one more sale before we departed. We took a 15-minute boat ride to another part of Komodo Island, where we were transferred in smaller groups onto a water taxi. We waited briefly offshore as another boat left the beach. We had arrived at Pantai Merah, or the Pink Beach, still on Komodo Island. This is a unique place because it has pink sand. Red coral particles and a microscopic animal called foraminifera combine to produce the pink color, vivid next to the azure blue water. Dodie and Jumina set up for a picnic lunch, cutting fresh fruit and making sandwiches that we all shared. Sitting under cedar trees, we had a truly memorable meal on the pink sand beach of Komodo Island. After our lunch, we examined some organ pipe, red coral, gathered with other corals on the beach. This was dead coral. It looked slightly different from the living coral, which has white polyps on the top. We were hoping to see some in the water nearby. This is a great place for snorkeling. We were provided with orange life vests to help us float and flippers for our feet. The masks and snorkel created a very interesting outfit with the rash guard leggings and t-shirts we wore to prevent sunburn. Down into the Indian Ocean we went, taking a few minutes to acclimate to our underwater surroundings. Right away, we could see the big variety of coral that was just offshore. Indonesia holds 17% of the world's total coral reef area. but many things are destroying the coral. There's climate change, but there's also illegal blast and cyanide fishing. Also, the world's largest exporter, Indonesia exports about 50 tons of coral per year. A mermaid swam by, dressed in her interesting swimming costume. We searched for any sign of organ-pipe red coral among the many kinds of coral and the few scattered fish swimming in seaweed flowing in the current. Into view came what appeared to be the white polyps of organ-pipe red coral. At least to our untrained eyes, it looked like the pictures we'd seen. Trying to examine and get video while staying in one place in the ocean current was a challenge. We saw what we thought were other smaller pieces of white polyp red coral. And then we decided to declare victory at finding red coral off the pink sand beach of Komodo Island. The taxi was brought up. We took one last look at this superb beach. Then we again split into groups to be taken to our water bus.
Don't leave me! Don't leave me!
We left Komodo Island behind. An incredibly beautiful cloud greeted us in the distance as, before we knew it, we were back at Labuan Bajo Harbor. We said goodbye to our water bus captain and left the busy harbor, and then boarded our tour bus to return to our hotel. It was sunset after another busy and perfect day in Flores. We ordered a bottle of Balinese rosé at our hotel and watched another flawless sunset in Indonesia. The following day, we looked out our hotel window on a foggy morning. We made an appointment with one of the pearl sellers from Komodo. His name was Mustafa, and we found him sitting quietly on the beach, his pearls spread before him. Mustafa had agreed to look for more green South Sea Island pearls for me. Alas, he had no luck finding green, but he had wonderful pink and black strands. How could I not get more of these iridescent jewels?
Once again, we boarded a tour bus and were driven to the harbor of Labuan Bajo. The port this time held a very large ferry near outriggers and quite a few scuba diving boats. A very popular sport, scuba is the main source of income and provides many jobs through lessons, rentals, and associated employment in this tropical playground. We once again were divided into groups, this time to board a small motorized dinghy. We were off on another adventure on the Indian Ocean. Our dinghy took us out to our teak motorized two-masted schooner. We were helped on board the schooner via a platform on the stern. On board, Jumina signaled us to come up top to the observation deck. He had prepared a presentation about the islands and the culture of Indonesia. We listened as Jumina told us about the country where he grew up and the islands where he takes travelers like us. This as we began to motor out the harbor, seeing once again the beautiful boats as we floated by them. After the presentation, we got to take a look at our home for this day. We went down to the main deck where we inspected the cabins available for our use. They had air conditioning, bunk beds, a lavatory with a ship's head, all made out of teak. As we came out of the cabin, we noticed our dinghy being towed behind the schooner as we went into the main cabin. There we found Captain Dio at the helm. He had very modern equipment, including a rudder angle indicator and satellite navigation to assist him in steering a safe course. Captain Dio had to look through the mess, or the dining room, to see what was ahead, so the instruments were really valuable. In the mess, there was coffee and tea, waiting as refreshment. We also went below to get a look at the engine room, containing a 6-cylinder diesel with a maximum speed of 7 knots, or about 8 miles an hour, taking us out once again past the many exquisite islands of Indonesia.
Rinca is another of the 29 islands that make up Komodo National Park. We motored up to the entrance on the dinghy. As we came into the dock, I noticed 2 schools of fish just below me in the shallow water. They swirled around each other. We disembarked and began our walk inland, where we had another opportunity to document our being at Komodo National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The entry gate was flanked by 2 marvelous dragon statues. Van noticed some sand crabs next to the path. These crabs are eaten by the macaque monkeys who live on Rinca Island. At the visitor center, we met Mateo, our guide for this morning's trek. Across the way, we saw what we now recognized as Timor deer, grazing under some trees. With deer, we figured there must be Komodo dragons nearby. On a path, we followed Mateo and Dodi through the dry forest brush. Then Mateo noticed a baby Komodo on one of the trees.
Oh, look at it's coming down, coming down.
Yeah, baby Komodo.
Oh, it's got its tongue out.
That's a perfect picture.
More or less 1 year. Yeah, look, you can see like the yellow spot on the neck. Wow, it's beautiful. Okay. Wow, we are lucky, eh? Can see this one on the tree.
So what does he eat? What does this guy eat?
Yeah, on the tree they eat only insects.
Baby Komodo go up trees to escape predators, including adult Komodo. There were orange-footed scrub fowl scratching in the forest debris. These small quail-sized birds mound dirt to build giant nests.
So their nest is taken over by the Komodo. It is used by the Komodo as well.
Oh, that's a huge nest.
It's a lot of work to make a big hill with that.
Right.
This dirt mound nest is used for laying eggs by both the scrub fowl and the Komodo dragons. How long must it take these small birds to create this huge mass? On through the hot morning, we came to an adult dragon resting next to a tree.
Here,
Oh no.
just next to the tree. Yeah, good camouflage. So this one is female and aim to guard or to protect the nest. The nest is down here.
Right here.
And you can see the holes down on the ground there. And this female aim to protect, or depending on the predator. Sometimes the wild boar come and then find the eggs, or even the adult Komodo. Yes, it is September to October, the time for them to lay their eggs. Now they are waiting for the rainy season. So if the rainy season come and then bring mud from the side of the hill and cover the hole down there. Yeah. Meanwhile, for the female dragon like this, they start mating when they are in 7 years old. But the male start the mating when they are in 8 years old. Yeah. So 7 always the good one, like 17 the human.
Who said that?
Sweet 17.
Sweet 17.
So, but for the Komodo dragons, sweet 7 years old.
Our group stood on the hillside and observed the female Komodo next to the nest where she would lay her eggs once the rains begin. We headed back through the forest to the visitor center. We now knew dragons sometimes rested under the raised buildings of a center. And there they were.
Small company. So 5 underneath here and 2 over there. And all underneath here, they are all male.
Wow, this was a pile of really big lizards, and these were active. Small doves pecked in the dirt near the Komodo and were oblivious to the enormous lizards close by. The biggest Komodo was about 10 feet in length, weighing probably 200 pounds. These world's largest lizards are carnivores, meat eaters, who attack deer, wild boar, snakes, fish, and rarely humans. It was thrilling to watch these huge dragons walk under the visitor center. We suspected that they might be fed, as we were allowed to stand what seemed very close to them. We'd been told that adult Komodo dragons are cannibals that eat their own species, and up to 10% of their diet is made up of newly hatched Komodo dragon babies. We were unsure if they might want to eat us.
It's the bigger one.
Watch that they don't come here.
Now the bigger one.
Can you hear the sound?
Yeah.
The Komodo dragon uses its amazing tongue to detect, taste, and smell, like many reptiles. With the help of a favorable wind and its habit of swinging its head from side to side as it walks, a Komodo may be able to detect carrion up to 6 miles away. Well, who can resist a photo with dragons in the foreground? Not us. Finally, we spent a bit more time watching these incredibly huge lizards.
We continued to have an absolutely unforgettable day as we motored into Kelor, a small jewel of an island. On the dinghy, we transferred our equipment at lunch. Then we set up camp near a sandy beach. It began to drizzle, and we decided it was yet another great opportunity for snorkeling. Down we went, checking our underwater camera, and then immediately noticed how degraded the coral was on Kelor. The problem with the popular bathing beach is that the activity can destroy the plants and animals living there. This beach's popularity was because it was a small gem with some colorful tropical fish. They were completely insensible to our intrusion and curiously came up to us. One of those mermaids, or maybe it was a merman, also came right up, just like the beautiful tropical fish. Through the murky water, we spotted some black spiny sea urchin on the ocean floor and decided to swim over and take a closer look. Right next to the spiny sea urchin were several chunks of pink brain coral and a school of intensely blue fish. Also, above the black urchin was a pearl-colored school, presumably seeking safety near the menacing spines. A fabulous green fish with pink, blue, and yellow markings went by in front of us. This was a wonderful specimen in this tropical South Sea island paradise. Being in this living aquarium reminded us of taking our kids to the local pet store, Scooters. They would press their faces to the glass trying to decide which fish to take home to our tank. So this might be right where those beautiful tropical fish originated. We never dreamed we would be so fortunate to come to the source of those South Sea island fish. Above the garden of amazing coral, we spotted a pufferfish, one of the most poisonous fish in the world. We stayed well back from this deadly creature. Then above vividly pink brain coral, we followed a fantastic lacy white fish splashed with black dots. It fluttered over a big variety of coral as it coasted along the sea bottom. 3 beautiful iridescent fish circled, and the largest fish bit at a pink sea urchin on the ocean floor. The smaller ones waited their turn. Survival of the fittest, or in this case the biggest, even here. This was a wondrous Indonesian South Sea island aquarium, a paradise of beautiful fish, coral, and seaweed.
dusk, we returned to the Labuan Bajo harbor. The daytime empty stalls next to the water were now busy with diners. This is a great place for a fabulous seafood meal that Van calls greet and eat. On offer were red snapper, octopus, squid, and shrimp.
I'll have the squid too. They have smaller, different sizes.
Which one do you like?
I want the squid, so which one? Is there never one?
I mean, one.
Get two or one?
No, you can have one. And then
How big is it?
this one is the biggest and the one smaller. Free.
After we made our selections, they were sent over to a very hot charcoal grill where a young man lathered on tomato sauce and created crisp portions. The luscious red snapper filled the plate. A smiling server brought the squid to us, cut into sauce-covered chunks. We shared a green salad with cucumber, green beans, and bamboo shoots, as well as a marvelous hot fish soup. While we were eating, who should come along but the pearl seller, Mustafa. Okay, black this time. Some for our daughter Erin.
What three?
For three? 215.
After a bit of bargaining, we paid our bill and then walked along the waterfront, passing the charcoal grill and the main Luan Bajo harbor gate to take our bus back to our hotel.
Our last day on Flores began with a ride out into the countryside.
And going to the village, Manggarai. And this county is called Manggarai, West Manggarai. And the biggest tribe is called Manggarai. So we are going to visit the village and to meet the chief with some of the members of the community, and takes us about 1 hour drive together. So we will be greeted by the chief and also have maybe short discussion with the chief and his people, and where it is a time for us to know more about the tribe, the community, and also of course they will share about their life as well.
We passed a church. Flores is 55% Christian, the island with the highest percentage in Indonesia. Cercer Village is the home of the Manggarai, one of the ethnic groups found in western Flores. We stepped off the bus to find something brown spread on the grass before us. We were unsure of what it was. Villagers were spreading it on tarps. Then we passed a small house with more tarps, but we did recognize this as rice. There was also laundry drying in the morning sun in front of the simple tin-roofed houses. As we climbed the hill, some of the villagers greeted us, including, of course, the kids. An entire family smiled in greeting when we asked if we could take their picture. Then we stopped along the way to enter a large tin-roof building. There we learned what was drying out front.
Come in, please.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, here is the macadamia nut with the hard skin. Before cracking, we have to dry them. And if it's sunny day, then it takes about 3 to 4 days in drying this kind of nuts.
Jumana held out a macadamia nut for us to see. We were also shown hand-loom cloth made in Cercer Village by these Manggarai women. The villagers are very proud of their hand-woven cloth. Dodi modeled some of the weavings, all the while the kids were standing nearby, tilting their precious faces for a picture. We looked down the hill on the tin roof community and then once again began to climb as we had an appointment to meet the village elders.
Ai te mai lau Amerika mai. Ho opa ang na riang tanativa. Ho toli me la mingrone baru. Ontong lemu.
All right. We say that here is the village, Cercer village, and we welcome you to our village, and we welcome you as well to our traditional house over there. So we'll follow them.
We removed our shoes and were led into the village community center with bamboo mats on the floor.
Ho tua. Tua ko maione vai mai na kudu talosa mo sei te tau. Le tua ko eta chondan kolang agu tamasan chas lain la konite. Tasuana tua ko kudu tiba ite kesa agu se tagako.
Alcoholic refreshments were served, and we shared this marvelous and unforgettable experience of meeting the Manggari men of Cercer village. As we left the center, there were other villagers who greeted us. They also agreed to have their pictures taken. They were as excited to have us as visitors as we were in meeting them.
Proceeding up the hill, we came to some village women playing in the community band. We were given more refreshment, this time locally grown coffee, and then Van and I settled in to record the performance unfolding before us. This was a ritual whip fight. It's a major element of Manggari cultural identity, played out by two male adversaries. The men wear symbolic tails made from traditional woven cloth over a pair of white pants. A belt of bells worn on the hips and a string of bells strapped to the ankles create the distinctive sound. The upper body remains bare, leaving it exposed to the whip's lashes. The equipment consists of whips, shields, sticks, and a mask with symbolic water buffalo horns. The aggressor's whip is made out of rattan with a leather-covered handle. It symbolizes the male phallic element, the father and the sky. The defender's round shield represents the female, the womb, and the earth. It's usually made out of bamboo and rattan covered with buffalo hide. Once a dying tradition, tourist shows are reviving this ancient custom. The women of Cercer Village then joined in the performance of traditional Manggarai music, singing, and dancing. A wonderful and moving end to our time on Flores, one of the many fabulous islands of Indonesia.
Ako nakalampa, akhirnya lain cokan tanah lon kalau